I mean, to people that would stand up and say something like just declaring every hurricane and earthquake and fire and whatever as the judgment of God, you know not what manner of spirit you're of, is the answer to that. I mean, first of all, they don't declare every natural disaster the judgment of God, only the ones that they want to. Especially California. People love to hate California. But I mean, look, let me tell you something about natural disasters. I grew up in North Dakota. Like, life was a natural disaster in North Dakota. It is, I just read, again, in the news, I mean, I talked to, folks back home, and it was negative 20-some degrees a couple weeks ago, and it's going to be negative 39 this coming week. And let me tell you something, if you are from California, and I would put you in that situation where you would be in negative 39 degrees, you would think it's a natural disaster. And you would be like, I mean, I guess God hates that place. We lived in Texas for almost 10 years, and we drove back and forth between Texas and North Dakota a couple times a year to visit family, and we would drive through this place called Moore, Oklahoma. And maybe it's a small town on the outskirts of Oklahoma City, and if you've heard of it, the reason you've heard of it is because it gets destroyed by, it's Tornado Alley. It's like it gets hit by tornadoes. I mean, twice in the 9 years that we were there, they had a disastrous tornado that went through this small little town. I guess God hates the people of Moore, Oklahoma. You see the problems that this leads you to? You see how foolish this is? To declare every natural disaster. And look, first of all, the Bible says that, earthquakes and all these things are going to happen in diverse places. You know what that means? Many different places. It doesn't even say, that says the end times approach. It doesn't even say the places that God is judging. It's so ridiculous. I could spend an hour talking to you how logically ridiculous it is, just using logic. I mean, the LA, look, we talk all the time in this church about, how things are mismanaged in this state. And we talk about problems in California, but we talk about solutions and opportunities and all these things too. It's not that we don't recognize those things. But I mean, well, Hollywood's wicked, so God burned down a city that's not Hollywood. Like, what? And there's like 4 celebrities that live there, and like he missed them all, apparently. Well, God doesn't miss. The point is, we do not speak, God does not audibly speak to us about what's going on. What you will find, though, let me go back to, growing up in a natural disaster. Just golf ball size hail, normal. Blizzards, multiple blizzards a year where you're literally snowed in, where you can't go anywhere for days, normal. Whiteout blizzards where you can't drive. Whiteout rain where you can't drive. My mother-in-law's car just a few years ago was destroyed while she was driving by softball-size hail. I mean, how many people would still be living there after something like that if they're not from that area? The answer is 0. Because they would be like, my goodness, what is going on here? But it's normal. But let me tell you something that I recognized from the LA fires recently. What I recognized is what you will find in places that go through very hard things like that on a regular basis is if you are in North Dakota and you are driving and you are on the side of the road, you will not be on the side of the road for more than a few minutes before someone stops to help you. Because, especially in the wintertime. Because people know that if you're on the side of the road and you're broken down in the wintertime, that it could be a life-threatening situation for you. So people have a very neighborly, attitude in places like that, because many times, even if you are prepared, cars break down. You get flat tires. People get stuck. I've been stuck so many times, I could not even give you a number. And sometimes people have to help you. You have to accept help. So you'll see that neighborly feeling. Look, we knew people fighting the fire here, personally. We had people who were related to a firefighter that was fighting the fire in LA. We know people who've been evacuated. We know people whose house actually was lost in the fire. And what you see Yeah, there's bad people doing bad stuff. But what you see is even people that aren't religious they have that neighborly feeling. And they want to help people. And look, it's a surprise to a lot of people in those areas that have not really gone through something traumatic like that before. They're like, it's just the greatest thing, and people are helping each other and neighbors and all this, and like it's a new thing that a lot of people haven't experienced. But look, the Christian hand should be the first helping hand. That is the heart, and that is what Jesus is explaining in Luke chapter 9 in verse number 55. He's like, no. You know, the Son of Man is not to come to destroy man's lives, but to save them. And they went on to another village. Christians should be helping people. Christians should be praying for people. I mean, Christians, I remember in Texas when Katrina happened. Like, man, it was the churches. I was so impressed. Even my Lutheran church. It wasn't, we know all about that. What were they doing? They were the first helping hand. The Baptists were just loading buses filled with people and just heading to Louisiana. And then a lot of those people came to Dallas, and look, it was the Christians, and that's what the heart of the Christian should be. Not like, you voted for that guy. I hope your house burns down. Like, what? What are you talking about? Christians should be helping people. Christians should be preaching to people. And it should never be said that non-Christians are better or more caring people than Christians. That should never be said. I mean, judgment does come. God does judge nations. God does judge communities. And we see in the Bible that as a nation turns against God and goes further and further, away from the Lord, that there will be consequences to that. We get that. But I could then misapply the Bible by making it say whatever I want it to say against whoever I want to say. We should never, and not even in the end times when things are really bad, we should not be rejoicing over people perishing. We should be preaching. We should be helping. Look, you should be the first one that offers help to your neighbor if your neighbor needs help. Doesn't matter where he goes to church or who he voted for. That is the right heart as a Christian.